Hello and welcome back to Game 3 of this final week of the second group stages of the World Cup of Pokémon VGC, hosted by Victory Road and sponsored by Elgato. My name is Jamie Boyt, and I am going to be casting once again with Mava Rock, and we have the pleasure of casting over one of our fellow casters here.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the match between Canada and Argentina. So Canada, we're actually showing Sierra's match, and Sierra, who was actually on stream yesterday. So it'd be really interesting to showcase her and what she's bringing. Canada has already been eliminated, but that means that they have a chance to bring some really interesting stuff. And I know that Sierra is somebody who definitely gets to have a lot of fun with working with lots of different Pokemon. So I'm sure it'll be really interesting for them as well. So I did realize I'm accidentally wearing the Canada colors just now as I looked at this from the profile photo from Sierra from On Break. So no bias, I promise, just bad fashion choices.
Of course. So we'll have to move on to now how to see what the kind of teams have been brought in this match between Canada and Argentina so far. And yeah, it's been pretty one-sided here for Argentina, getting that 7-0. And this match could decide whether it is going to be a clean sweep for Argentina.
Yeah, and that would be exactly what Argentina would want going into that playoff stage. There's nothing like riding the high of getting that 8-0. One thing too, I am immediately getting my eye drawn to a Surfetched on this, which is really interesting because that's not a Pokemon that we're seeing that much. Ho-Oh and Krogunk is another one that I'm looking at. So lots of really interesting teams when you're in this sort of stage and you can go a little bit whole hog here. So interesting to see exactly why some of these teams, even Jellison coming out as well as another one that we haven't seen too much.
And I'm particularly drawn to Alessio's team. And it
That
looks
was
pretty
mine
small
too.
to me, but is that a Snommer, Pincurchin, and a Pukumuku? I think
Yes, so
that's
they're
right.
bringing the three smallest, I suppose. That is absolutely hysterical with some of the biggest Pokemon in the game being Kyogre and Stakataka. So I
And it
absolutely
took a
love
game as
that.
well. It managed
It
to take a
took
game. That's
probably because
amazing.
Ezekiel had no idea what the heck it was going to do, right? But some really awesome teams. This is when this game gets really fun and why I'm excited to be commentating with you, Jamie, because some things that I might not know, you might have been like, oh, I experimented with that last week and it does this, this,
Camera.
and this. So I can talk about it. So, if we want to jump over right now to what each of our players are bringing to this match. We'll be able to see exactly what they have. We're going to be looking at Sierra first, and Sierra has a great Groudon Cherrim team.
Yeah, so going to be rocking the Venusaur this time with the Groudon, a Pokemon we don't see too often with Groudons currently, because it has lost access to that Gigantamax form, because there is no Dynamax in this format. You don't see it as often anymore. You do see Cherrim much more commonly than Venusaur paired with Groudon at this point, thanks to that flower gift, but going to be rocking both of them here instead. So going to have the benefit of both of them having access to the flower gift, still having access to a chlorophyll Pokemon to make use of the sun. And you still got those two fire types paired along with the Groudon, with that Incineroar and that Entei to really make use of the drought that the Groudon could set up.
I am realizing I bet that Alessio picked that team with Pyukumuku because look at Canada's logo. It is that Pyukumuku with the Canadian maple leaf there. So another really interesting thing. But yeah, I'm loving, there's a lot of fire types on this team. Cherrim's a Pokemon that's been great. That flower gift ability really helping boosting its partners, especially being in the sun. Venusaur with chlorophyll means it goes extremely fast, and that Regieleki also can move really fast. Having that access to sleep as well can be really nice. You just have to be paying attention to, where's the Rillaboom and can it switch in, or does something have, the safety goggles here? But if we look over at Sierra's opponent and what they're going to be bringing to this match, we'll be able to see that Alejo Humphreys, he's got that Zacian, the Rillaboom, the Entei, the Whimsicott, the Landorus Therian, and the Milotic. So two of my favorite Pokemon on this team and two possible ways to set sleep, one per team here.
Yeah, Milotic could be running that coil hypnosis set that is going to be very pesky, boosting up the accuracy so that hypnosis will always connect. But it has at the moment it does seem like Milotic is more tending to try and dissuade the Incineroars, go for those Scalds and Icy Winds to help support the Zacian as well, because you don't want your Zacian to be intimidated, and one of the best counters to that is that competitive ability. Because you do get those +2 stages of increased special attack immediately on being intimidated, and then you are able to hit the Incineroar for super effective damage. So Milotic is a very strong pairing with the Zacian. So we'll have to see if it is going to be a slightly more offensive
Camera.
set to try and punish the competitive boost that could be given because of the intimidates, or if it is going to be that coil hypnosis set, which is so pesky.
Yeah, a girl can dream for sure. I would love to see Coil Hypnosis. I haven't really seen it yet in Series 10. But if we cut over to Team Preview, we can get into the start of this match and we'll be able to see exactly what they're kind of going for. I think Milotic is a really interesting choice, but without any way to set Rain, if it wants to go for something like that Scald, even with that boost, it's going to be really inhibited by the Groudon setting that Sun and all of these different, especially Venusaur if it's running some very especially if it's running for, a couple of really strong grass type attacks here, or even just able to put something to sleep. So if there is safety goggles on Alejo's team, then it is going to be something you have to pay attention to. But Regieleki is still a great counter for it as long as Landorus is out of the way.
And Crown is classically one of the restricted you would expect to come out on top. Against most Ashen teams, it does tend to have a very good matchup in that regard, especially with the partners that it has or with it, like that NT and the Incineroar, really doubling down on being able to hit it super effectively and reduce the damage that it can do. And then you do have that Milotic that will be able to take on those fire types and the Groudon very well as well. But then you've also got the Venusaur, the Regieleki, and Cherrim, which is going to be able to threaten it pretty heavily as well, and even increase the special defense if you get that Cherrim getting that Flower Gift going. Would keep the special defense pretty high of your partner Pokemon as well. So the Milotic won't be doing as much damage if the partner is next to that Cherrim in the sun. So might have to rely on something like that Landorus as well to get those Intimidates going down against the Groudon so it can reduce the damage output that could come out against the Zacian. Not going to particularly work against the Entei because of that inner focus, but would be very effective against the Groudon.
Yeah, and we are going to see the leads here from Alejo, bringing the Whimsicott and the Entei, so not really going to want to deal with, or not going to worry about dealing with something like that Intimidate. Fake Out possibly just to lower that, just to break that Focus Sash, but instead no Fake Out users at all. We get the Entei on Sierra's side with that Groudon, so some Fire-type moves are going to be pretty powerful right now. This Whimsicott not looking like it wants to take a Fire-type move, whether it be a Heat Crash from that Groudon, or really anything from the Enteis with those Sacred Fires.
And even if it's got a focus slash on the Whimsicott, if the Sacred Fire is hit into the Whimsicott, it could be just burning it and getting rid of that immediately as well. And the Entei on Alejo's side of the field is threatened by the Precipice Blades pretty heavily here. You'd probably have to get a Sacred Fire burn if you want the Entei to be able to survive, or switch in the Landorus for the Whimsicott instead to get that Intimidate going, so that it would probably be able to survive the Precipice Blades in that regard. But then if you switch out the Whimsicott, you're not getting any of that support going, any of those Tailwinds that could be set up as well, whether it's got access to Grass Knot or Moonblast to be able to do some good damage to the Groudon as well. Because the Entei on Alejo's side of the field, it could do some reasonable damage with the Sacred Fire, or a Stone Edge or a Stomping Tantrum if it's carrying that into the Entei as well.
Yeah, but we're not going to see any Precipice Blades as this Incineroar switches in for the Groudon on Sierra's side, getting the Intimidate off importantly, but also going to be able to get that Fake Out pressure on that Whimsicott just to especially break a Focus Sash. We see a Helping Hand here, though. If this is a Helping Hand into a Sacred Fire or some really strong move here, instead it's a Stone Edge, which does connect into the Entei on Sierra's side. That is not enough to knock it out, though. It lives on 4 HP. Even with that Helping Hand, Sacred Fire does go into the Whimsicott. It does bring it down to a Focus Sash at the moment. We're going to have to see if this burns, though. I'm not entirely sure that it will. It does not, so this Whimsicott will hang on for one more turn.
Yeah, that was a very interesting turn there, bringing both Pokemon that got attacked there down very, very low in range of any other attack that they would want to go for. But yeah, really strong Stone Edge with that boosted Helping Hand, not able to take out that Entei. So you can see how well trained that Entei is, pretty bulky on this side. I don't think a regular Entei without any defensive training would be able to survive that attack. Maybe that is what Alejo was expecting there, but going with the bulkier Entei means that it's going to stick around, get that Whimsicott down to its sash. Maybe if it's carrying Extreme Speed here, it can pick off that Whimsicott with that attack. The Incineroar could be going for that as well with the Fake Out, but of course Helping Hand is going to out-prioritize both those attacks.
Yeah, Entei actually goes for the Extreme Speed. Is enough to knock the Whimsicott out with a critical hit for sure on that 1 HP. Very important extra damage, of course. Entei goes for another Stone Edge. This will hit into the Incineroar. With that Helping Hands, enough to knock it out. However, with a peek behind, another critical hit as well. So that is a massive amount of damage. But a peek behind the screen, we saw that her Regieleki is that Choice Scarf, which means that her Entei is going to be a little bit bulkier. It's carrying that Assault Vest. So if it was trying to go outspeed, if there was an extreme speed tie, it wouldn't happen unless that other Entei is also carrying that Assault Vest as well.
Yeah, we have seen well, I was going to say the Entei move first twice here, but the Extreme Speed would have out-prioritized that. But it moved first on the on the first turn, maybe feeling a bit more confident that they would outspeed, and probably confirming it by the fact that the Entei survived the Helping Hand Stone Edge. Means that there's probably not enough EVs left over to put into speed to outspeed, or at least speed tie with the opposing Enteis, even if it is not choice scarfed into that Stone Edge. But it has gone for that twice in a row here. It doesn't particularly indicate whether it's going to be the choice scarf yet, because Stone Edge is the move you want to hit into that Entei and the Incineroar. As we saw, it almost KO'd that Entei and did KO the Incineroar with the help of that Helping Hand. So the inner focus being very crucial there as well to help out so that it doesn't get intimidated. But it did get the critical hits regardless on the Stone Edge. I'm not sure if that would KO the Incineroar because the Entei was able to survive. Incineroar's going to have pretty close bulk to the Entei as well. Depending on how that was trained, it may have been able to survive without the critical hit. But Stone Edge does have that increased critical hit chance as well. So managing to get that, being able to KO the Incineroar here. The Entei is still on its last legs, could very easily be picked off by this Rillaboom that switched in. But whether that is with a Fake Out or Grassy Glide doesn't really matter. The Fake Out would at least out-prioritize the extreme speed, so you'd be able to get that Fake Out off before the Entei would be able to attack with any of its moves in that regard. But if you went for the Grassy Glide, that is a little bit extra chip that could come out from the extreme speed. Or if the Entei wants to preserve itself and switch out into the Pokemon in the back, that could be an option as well, and that is the option that Sierra is taking.
Yeah, and that cute Cherrim comes out. It gets that sun, so it is going to activate that Flower Gift ability. Going to become the really cute dancing little Cherrim on the field here. Much happier for sure. Entei goes for that Stone Edge, though. Without a Helping Hand, it's going into the Cherrim. Still does a nice chunk of damage, just under half, while the Wood Hammer from the Rillaboom comes out here into the Groudon. That is enough for a one-hit knockout. So most importantly, they didn't even target that Entei. That Entei was not even a problem for it. Didn't have to want to deal with possibly a Precipice Blades or a Heat Crash from that Groudon. That Rillaboom is able to take out an entirely massive restricted.
Really, really big damage coming out from the Rillaboom there. And the Entei going for the Stone Edge once again, that's probably going to indicate the choice item on that Entei. You'd most likely want to go for a different move into the Entei if you're trying to pick it off, because Stone Edge is one of the least accurate moves that Entei has access to. You'd probably want to switch up to a more accurate move, because any move, any kind of damage, even something like a Snarl would have KO'd the Entei at this point, so it should be the choice card coming out on the Entei, but a really good call expecting the Entei to switch out there, not going for the Fake Out to try and KO the Entei, getting that damage down into the Groudon just to take it out, and now there's the Entei on Alejo's side of the field is going to be switching out into that Zacian.
Yeah, Zacian switches in. It is not going to be threatened by anything with Intimidate on Sierra's side, as they have all been kind of knocked out of the way. Rillaboom goes for a Grassy Glide. That's enough to knock out this Entei. We saw that this Cherrim went for a Pollen Puff, but that is not going to out-prioritize a Grassy Glide, so that is not going to really do anything or put Sierra in any better position. And this should really wrap up game one here for Sierra.
Yeah, it's not too much that this Cherrim can be doing, unfortunately. It does get some pretty good damage output with the Flower Gift boosting up its attack and the Solar Blade being a very strong grass-type attack that it has access to, but definitely not going to be able to do it against this Zacian and the Rillaboom. Even if it was strong enough with that Flower Gift boost, the sun would run out at some point, and then it would no longer have access to the one-turn Solar Blade or that attack boost either. So yeah, really nice showing for that first game from Alejo. That Entei really putting in the work with those Stone Edges, being able to do so much damage to the opposing Entei, putting it in range of whatever Alejo would want to go for to follow up the KO, and also being able to take out the Incineroar in one shot as well. Pretty much left Sierra with no real options to pivot around anymore, and that left the Groudon open to that Wood Hammer.
Yeah, and I mean, having that Groudon be your priority for targeting instead of that 4 HP Entei when you knew that it could possibly switch in and out, because that Entei really was your big answer for the Zacian, whenever that Zacian came out, and if you had to keep that alive, then you know that that Groudon isn't going to be able to really go before you can, so you can go for something like that Wood Hammer and knock it out very easily. So it was really great from Alejo to see what he prioritized for his win con for that game, and what position he needed to put himself in to succeed. I think for Sierra, she might just have to change up her lead. She might just have to protect Incineroar from a switch in onto a Stone Edge crit, which I can't really say is the easiest thing to do in the whole world. But, you know, if you have to just be a little bit more careful about your positioning with Incineroar just to keep your Intimidates going onto Pokemon like Zacian and, your Fake Out pressure.
Yeah, there was the option to just go for the Precipice Blades immediately on that turn one, because the Entei did ignore, and the Whimsicott as well, ignored the Groudon that was on Sierra's side of the field. The Helping Hand Stone Edge targeted down into the opposing Entei. That was a prime opportunity to go for that Precipice Blades. If it connects with the Entei, that's going to pick up a knockout. So a little bit of a missed opportunity, potentially to take care of that Entei. And because it was able to survive that turn one, it was then able to take care of the Incineroar the next turn with the Helping Hand. So yeah, the Groudon it definitely looks like the Groudon looks like the best way through the Entei on Alejo's side of the field. The Regieleki can do a reasonable amount of damage, but apart from that, it's really going to be pretty good against the rest of the Pokemon coming out on Sierra's side of the field. So you do need to try and find a way to get a Precipice Blade to be connecting with that Entei. But then you also have to worry about the fact that Landorus could switch in at any point, just get those Intimidates down. You have to contend with the shaky accuracy of Precipice Blades. If that misses the Entei as it gets off its attack, that's going to be a bit detrimental as well. And also the fact that the Entei, instead of going for the Stone Edge, could go for the Sacred Fire instead. And if that manages to get the burn on the Groudon, it should be able to survive the Precipice Blades in that regard, and really neuter the Groudon going forward in the match. So it does have to be very careful how Sierra is going to be positioning around that Entei, because it was putting in a lot of work into that game one.
Yeah, and I think, I didn't mind Sierra's Pokemon choices, but I really like what you said about that turn 1. And I think if Sierra just plays her turn 1 differently, she can at least set herself up on the right foot moving forward. Especially, that Cherrim is really nice to have in the back as long as you can keep it and yourself healthy so that you can utilize the Flower Gift to the best of its ability, though. For Game 2, the leads, we'll have to see exactly what the adjustments are from Sierra and Alejo, if there are any at all. The lead for Alejo will be coming out first, though, and the Pokemon that he's going to bring are going to be from, excuse me, are going to be the Whimsicott and the Entei, so the exact same lead that he had the last game. And then we saw that peek behind the screen. Sierra is also going to be leading the exact same Pokemon she did, that Entei and that Groudon. So no real big Pokemon switches up here, but it might be a switch up of what moves are being used in this first turn.
Yeah, now the knowledge of the fact that the Entei can survive that Helping Hand Stone Edge does make it a bit more awkward to go for that play, because you managed to avoid the Precipice Blades that are coming out in that game 1. Definitely could be coming out in this game 2, because you do need to find a way through the opposing Entei on Alejo's side of the field, and Precipice Blades is absolutely the best way to do that. But if you go for that Precipice Blades, you could be opening yourself up to that potential burn that could come out from the Sacred Fire. You still don't know the offensive move on this Whimsicott that it should be carrying, whether that is going to be Moonblast or the Grass Knot. If it's the Grass Knot, that's going to be doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, Flare Blitz, though, into the Groudon from the Entei on Alejo's side does a ton of damage, well over half. Whimsicott actually goes for that Grass Knot. That is the offensive move that it is carrying. That is enough to finish off this Groudon right in turn 1, so already a tough start for Sierra, losing her really main restricted here. Entei goes for a Stone Edge. This will go into the opposing Entei. Even with that recoil from the Flare Blitz, it's not enough to knock it out, so interesting to see a Flare Blitz on there as that other move for Entei.
And opting to go for a Sacred Fire there to try and get the burn, but extra damage output with the slightly stronger Flare Blitz, and that was enough in combination with the Grass Knot. Grass Knot isn't commonly run on Whimsicott. Usually you would just go for the Moonblast as the only offensive move on the Whimsicott, but Grass Knot going to be very, very effective against Pokemon like the Groudon. It makes a lot of sense when you pair it with Zacian, because Groudon is so classically good against the Zacian team. Having extra ways of beating it like that Grass Knot on the Whimsicott, as shown in that turn 1, is going to be very effective, because now the restricted for Sierra is gone on that turn 1. Was the best way of breaking through the Entei, but you got that Stone Edge as well that did connect. Now it is in Extreme Speed range, even Fake Out range if the Incineroar wants to go for it, because that has now switched in. It could be faking out the Whimsicott instead to try and put a stop to any of the priority moves that it would want to go for. The Helping Hand could come out to out-prioritize that, but then you could just still pick off the Entei with the Extreme Speed, so that wouldn't really matter in that regard. Fake Out could break the Focus Sash on the Whimsicott as well, so maybe it just wants to go for a Protect if it's carrying that move as well, just to keep that Focus Sash intact. But no, the Fake Out is going into the Entei instead, so very rare Fake Out knockout here.
Yeah, Fake Out putting in the work that it needed to. Another Grass Knot from the Whimsicott into this Entei slot does very little damage, as it's not very effective, and Entei weighs way less than Groudon does. A Sacred Fire, though, is going to do a really nice amount of damage. Bring it down to the Focus Sash. It does not get burned, though, I believe. So now this Whimsicott is going to hang on for another turn and just be a little bit more annoying.
Yeah, if that Whimsicott would have been burned, that would have brought Alejo right down to their last 2 Pokemon immediately. Almost certainly going to be that Zacian, and whatever else was waiting in the back would have to contend with the Entei and the Incineroar and whatever was waiting in the back. But Zacian is going to be that Pokemon that is going to be joining the field here, so they're going to be threatening down both the Entei and the Incineroar with a potential close combat or a Sacred Sword. Some Zacians are opting to drop that Fighter in coverage now. If it does only have access to Behemoth Blade and Play Rough, and then one of the supported moves, whether that's Swords Dance or Substitute, it's really not going to be able to threaten this Entei at all, because it does resist both of those attacks. But if it is carrying the Fighting type attack, we know that there's Helping Hand on the Whimsicott as well. A Helping Hand boosted close combat should be able to knock out the Entei. Although this Entei, we've already seen it as a pretty bulky one, it may even be able to survive that attack. Incineroar definitely wouldn't be able to survive the Fighting type attack if it gets that Helping Hand boost as well, whether that is close combat or Sacred Sword. probably still going to be KO'd by a Helping Hand play rough also, so does have options of being able to pick up KO onto that Zacian, with the Zacian onto both Pokemon, but then you have to contend with two potential fire types that come out, but now it's down to one because that Incineroar has switched out.
Yeah, Cherim switches in for the Incineroar, trying to make the use of the last few turns of Sun that Sierra has left for her, as that Groudon is now completely out of the game. Whimsicott does go for that Helping Hand, going to boost the power of whatever move Zacian goes for here. Entei instead goes for the Extreme Speed, going to get rid of that Whimsicott off of the field, finally bringing Alejo down to his final two Pokemon. One will be the Zacian, and then whatever he has left in the back. A Play Rough, though, into the Cherim slot. Cherim does get knocked out here, but this will allow this Incineroar to come back in and get Intimidate and Fake Out, and it means that this really dominant, bulky Entei is still on the field as well.
Yeah, and the Incineroar gets to intimidate the Zacian now, but is it going to be intimidating a Milotic? No, it's going to be a Rillaboom instead. That's not the Pokemon that you want to switch in against the Entei and the Incineroar. At least it's going to out-prioritize the Fake Out with its own one, so you can go for a Fake Out into the Incineroar with the Rillaboom and keep the Zacian somewhat safe this turn, but now it needs to be able to do the damage to the Entei and the Incineroar here. We've seen it is carrying that Play Rough. We'll have to still see if it is going to be carrying the Close Combat or the Sacred Sword here. That would be the best way of dealing damage to that Entei. It's only taken a little bit of chip damage, so probably not even in range of Close Combat, which would be the strongest option of hitting the Entei that Zacian has at this point. So really, you just have to just take the Fake Out with the Incineroar and then just get the Sacred Fire off into the Zacian. The Sun is still going to be up, so it should still be able to pick up the knockout on that Zacian, and then Rillaboom is going to have to break through the Entei and the Incineroar, so probably not going to be able to do that, because the two fire types is exactly what you want in this endgame against the Rillaboom and the Zacian.
Yeah, we're going to see the Fake Out first from the Rillaboom onto the Incineroar, so the Fake Out from the Incineroar will not go off. However, a Swords Dance here is being revealed. So we've seen a couple of the moves, but it may not be carrying something like a Sacred Sword. Entei goes for Sacred Fire, though, into this Sash, and that is enough to knock it out in the sun. That is so much damage, and now you've just got this Rillaboom staring down two Fire-type Pokemon, and it does not know any double targeting moves. We've seen it carries Wood Hammer as well.
Yeah, it's still going to be doing reasonable damage, but definitely not enough into the Entei and the Incineroar. A respectable Sword Stance there if you do dodge the Sacred Fire, because it doesn't have perfect accuracy. That could have been a way back in. Maybe with the Sword Stance boost, you were able to knock out that Entei with the combination of the +2 Behemoth Blade and the Grassy Glide, and then there could have been a way back into the game in that regards, but Sacred Fire is going to be connecting there and taking the game for Sierra. So maybe it would have been better to try and preserve the information of the Sword Stance, because that hadn't been revealed yet. So now you're feeling probably a lot more confident that there is no fighting type attack on that Zacian, because you don't really have space for it if you carry Sword Stance and Play Rough, because you do want that Behemoth Blade for the offensive move for sure, and then you're almost certainly going to be carrying Protect as well. So yeah, going for the win condition does make sense in that game too, but then it was a very, very slim one. Is that worth revealing the information of the Sword Stance on Zacian?
Yeah, and I said Wood Hammer. For some reason, I was thinking of the powerful Wood Hammer from the prior game that we saw from Ben and Gabby, and my brain completely erased Grass Knot. Just because Grass Knot is such a powerful move in my head from such a small Pokemon. But if we go into this game 3 here for these two trainers, I loved that the changes that Sierra made, it wasn't with her Pokemon, but it was with her play. And one thing that you said at the end of the game, if Alejo had been preserving a Milotic in the back, even if there were 2 turns of Sun left, Milotic is so bulky and it's still able to handle a lot of really strong moves. It does get access to Recover. It isn't a Pokemon that uses it as much as it maybe used to. However, if it has something like a Muddy Water for that move pool, it is able to, get some really nice accuracy drops as well, or even just a Scald, or just to slow anything down. So I almost would have liked to see that, just to get that nice cheeky competitive boost from that Incineroar and get to that +2 special attack.
Yeah, Milotic over Rillaboom would have surely taken the game for Alejo there, because it's going to be able to beat the Entei and the Incineroar, especially paired with the Zacian as well. So yeah, Rillaboom does make sense coming into a Groudon, because it does hit it super effectively. We saw the Wood Hammer just obliterate it in that game 1, so Rillaboom does make sense going into a Groudon matchup, even though there are Pokemon like the Entei and the Incineroar, and even the Venusaur, even though that's not coming to the match. Rillaboom is good against Groudon, maybe not so much against the partners, so it does make sense as a bring, but do you still sacrifice it now, knowing that Milotic would have been able to secure that game too? Do you drop it now for that Milotic, expecting similar plays to be able to come out so that Milotic could take the end game? because you still got to worry about the potential of the Cherrim or the Venusaur. If they get in the sun, they're going to be able to do some very good damage to the Milotic as well. Even the Cherrim is going to be able to hit the Milotic on its slightly weaker physical side with the Solar Blades as well. You need to get some coils up before you'd be facing down the Cherrim in that regard. So it'll be interesting to see if that Milotic is going to be coming to this game 3.
Yeah, game 3 here, though, with these leads. If there is any difference, I'm excited to see it. Alejo brings out Entei and Zacian, so a bit of a different lead here. Not going to be bringing out that Whimsicott in that turn 1, but still taking that Entei to this field. Incineroar and Groudon, though, for Sierra, so that is a lead change for her as well. The Intrepid Sword will go up first because Zacian is faster. However, the Intimidate will go up right after this Drought, which will immediately reduce that Intrepid Sword ability and put that Fake Out pressure onto this Zacian early on in the game.
Yeah, switch ups from both players here. No Whimsicott coming out from Alejo, and Entei waiting in the back at least for Sierra. So again, that Intimidate down onto the Zacian is very, very nice on this turn 1, especially because you can also go for the Fake Out. Two Pokemon facing down the Precipice Blades that don't want to be taking them is exactly the position you want to be in, especially when you can put a stop to one of them even moving this turn with the Fake Out. So a very, very nice lead coming out for Sierra, facing down the Entei and the Zacian. It did go for the Flare Blitz in that game too, over something like the Sacred Fire. Some players do opt to drop the Sacred Fire for extra coverage because they just rely on the extra power of the Flare Blitz. So if that is the case, Groudon won't need to worry about the potential of a burn coming out from any Sacred Fires from the Entei, and you can pretty much just safely launch off your Precipice Blades here. Even if the Zacian protects, you're still going to be able to get a Precipice Blades down into that Entei.
Zacian actually switches out, though, and brings out Landorus Therian, which is not going to worry about a Precipice Blades here due to that flying type that it has, and gets an Intimidate off to boot onto both of these Pokemon that aren't going to love dealing with it, especially that Groudon would not want to lose that extra attack stat. Fake Out from the Incineroar, though, goes into the Landorus, who just swapped in, so that's not going to do a whole lot, but it reveals the Rocky Helmet, which is interesting, and then the Flare Blitz from this Entei goes into the Groudon on Sierra's side, does over half damage like we saw in that game 2, damaged by that recoil. Groudon goes for the Precipice Blades, won't hit the Landorus, and the Entei avoids it. So a rough turn 1 for Sierra here.
Yeah, that's one of the downsides of Precipice Blades. It does have that shaky accuracy. And even with the Intimidate, the Entei did get Flare Blitz recoil to reduce its HP down, so may have still been in range of that Precipice Blade. So definitely an unfortunate dodge there for the Entei being able to survive now. It can just go for another Flare Blitz into the Groudon. We've seen it did over half thanks to that Sun Boost. It will be able to pick up the knockout now, so it can't get a Precipice Blade into this Entei anymore if it just gets Flare Blitzed as well. And the Landorus switching in against the Incineroar can get those Earth Powers down into the Incineroar. Because it is the Therian form, it's going to be a lot weaker than the Incarnate form as well, so the Earth Power shouldn't be able to pick up the knockout in the Incineroar, but it should still be able to do a very nice chunk of damage.
Yeah, Incineroar actually switches out here, though, and this is going to bring out the Cherrim for Sierra. So Sierra possibly just trying to get that extra boost to its attack and special defense here with that Flower Gift from Cherrim and just capitalize on the sun. Even if Groudon gets knocked out this turn, Cherrim will be able to help out whatever partner Pokemon there is. Entei here goes for a Flare Blitz into the Groudon. This will be enough to knock it out pretty comfortably, though. So now this Cherrim is looking down 2 Pokemon where, you know, the size difference is definitely pretty threatening here for Cherrim, who is so small. And taking a U-turn is not going to feel great for this Grass type. Does over half damage, and this is going to allow the Landorus to come in and out again here for Alejo.
Yeah, going to be able to preserve that Intimidates for the Incineroar that could come back in as well. Going to be able to reposition back maybe into that Zacian now, but Milotic was brought to this game instead, so no Rillaboom and no Whimsicott coming out in this game, switching up for that Landorus and the Milotics. And now that the Groudon has been taken care of, you really just need to take care of the Cherrim, and then there's not going to be any real good ways of breaking through the Milotic anymore. And Entei is easily going to be able to take out that the Cherrim there, even though we've seen the sneak peek of the Ockerberry on that Cherrim, because it's already taken half of its HP. That shouldn't be able to survive that Flare Blitz even with that berry at this point. So if you lose the Cherrim, that's going to be the best way of breaking through the Milotic at this point. The Entei, at least it is going to be in range of a Stone Edge that can come out from the Entei. We did see it survive in that game 1, but it's taken a lot more recoil thanks to the Flare Blitz than it had done in that previous game. So should be in range of the knockout here. But you do need to be preserving this Cherrim because you need a way of breaking through the Milotic. Entei and Incineroar could potentially do it with Fake Outs and maybe getting a Sacred Fire burn as well, but it's going to be doing it very slowly and you may not be afforded those turns. So Solar Blade is going to be the best way of breaking through, but you need to keep the Cherrim safe, and Protect is definitely a way to do that.
Yeah, Charon will not be taking any damage from this Flare Blitz from the Entei on Alejo's side. However, the Stone Edge from the Entei on Sierra's does connect. It is enough to knock out that Entei, which is absolutely huge because now this Charon can live a little bit more comfortably, even if there is still a Zacian in the back. Icy Wind for Milotic, revealing that tech move to help slow down the Pokemon on Sierra's side to make sure that that Zacian stays faster and do a little nice amount of super effective damage to that Charim if it wasn't protecting. However, this Entei is the only one that's going to feel the effects of that Icy Wind and go down one stage of speed.
Yeah, it might have even been better there if Sierra hadn't picked up the knockout on the Entei and put it into extreme speed range. Because now you get the switch in into the Landorus or the Zacian there. And now the Landorus, we've already seen it did over half to the Cherim. The Zacian would be able to pick up the knockout as well. So if you'd have left that Pokemon, the Entei there, in extreme speed range, that would have been an opportunity to get a Solar Blade into this Milotic. But now it's going to be a bit awkward to be able to do that now. And maybe if the Cherim is able to outspeed the Landorus and the Milotic, you can get a Solar Blade into it before it attacks. Players do often run Cherim pretty fast as well. Usually with the Focus Sash, though. I'm not entirely sure if they would run Cherim that fast if they're running the Aqua Berry instead. Probably going with a more defensive set in that regard. And then it will come down to the training of the Landorus and the Cherim of which one is going to be able to outspeed each other. And if you're not feeling confident in that, you've got to switch out into Incineroar to try and just keep that Cherim safe. It is the best way of breaking through the Milotic at this point. The sun is still up though, so you can still do some very good damage with the Sacred Fire into the Landorus, but you've got to contend with the Earth Power that could be coming out as well. Not so worried about the Scalds. Icy Wind isn't going to be doing too much to the Entei, so it's kept safe at least by the sun for a little bit longer. But yeah, if you preserve that the Cherim, or even switch out the Entei here, you're going to be switching in that Incineroar in the face of a Milotic.
Yeah, and this Milotic is pretty happy to be taking this competitive +2 special attack boost for its really powerful special type attack moves that it really, now it makes it extremely threatening. The Intimidate is nice for the Landorus. It doesn't do a whole lot there. Milotic actually protecting here. Not going to want to take any Solar Blade damage from this Cherim in the sun, so that is not going to be able to do anything here for Sierra. It is just instead going to make it sit here and, maybe take a really nice hit from this Landorus, but most importantly, this Landorus moves slower than the Cherim. It does get this Earth Power off into the Incineroar, but it doesn't even do a whole lot, but it does drop the special defense, which could be useful later.
Yeah, that might put it in range of another Earth Power coming out here, so a little bit of an unfortunate drop. Incineroar should have been able to survive another one for sure without that drop coming out. You can still go for a fake out into the Landorus at this point. Cherim does outspeed the Landorus, which is pretty important here. If it did underspeed, could have been taken out by the U-turn, although that Intimidate did get put down onto the Landorus. Most likely going to be able to survive the U-turn with that Intimidate as well. So this is an opportunity to try and get the Solar Blade into the Milotic, but then at the same time you can just always switch out into your Zacian to resist that. But nope, Cherim's just going to be able to go on the offensive here.
Cherim is able to go on the offensive here, and it is going to be able to get this Solar Blade off, but this might be its only chance to do this big damage to this Milotic here, and it is not enough to knock it out. It doesn't even get it into the bottom 25% of its HP. Milotic goes for an Icy Wind once again. Will do that super effective damage to Cherim, bring it down to just 26 HP, while the Incineroar does take a little bit more damage, but this will put it in range of an Earth Power, especially with that special defense drop from that Landorus last turn. The Landorus does go for the Earth Power this turn, and this is enough to knock out the Incineroar. So now it is just Cherim here with an Entei in the back for Sierra, who's going to be able to do this, but there is no more sun.
Yeah, so that Cherim is going to be going back to its regular form at this point. So no special defense boost, no attack boost anymore going to be on the field. And it is going to be the leftovers coming out from the Milotic, so going to be even more healthy at this point. And now Cherim really can't be the answer to Milotic anymore. You'd have to go for 2 turns to be able to charge up the Solar Blade, and we know that the Milotic is carrying the Protect, so it really is going to be resting on the shoulders of this Entei to be able to take the rest of this game for Sierra. It does have to beat a pretty much full HP Landorus and a Zacian waiting in the back. It can at least take on the Zacian pretty well, especially with the helping hand that come out from the Cherim and some Pollen Puffs to be healing it up. But the Cherim is so low at this point and has taken an Icy Wind, probably going to underspeed the Landorus and the Milotic at this point as well. So Icy Wind or U-turn would be able to pick up the knockout on that Cherim. You may need to protect it to keep it safe, but at this point, it's not really going to be able to achieve too much. Maybe it can give a damage boost with the helping hand. Maybe it can heal the Entei, but you need to take damage on the Entei for it to be able to help out with that. So you just need to focus down the Cherim before it can get those Pollen Puffs off, and then just slowly pick apart the Entei with the 3v1.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see. The Charm goes for that helping hand for that Entei, trying to just give that partner Pokemon a little bit of a boost for these attacks. Entei goes for the Sacred Fire into the Landorus on Alejo's side. Does a little bit more damage than it would have. Milotic gets that Scald off, though. Without the Sun, this does a ton of damage. It is not enough to knock it out. Because this Entei is so bulky, this U-turn from Landorus will be enough to finish off the Cherrim, but the fact that there was no burn on the Landorus really, I think, seals this game for Sierra here.
Yeah, you get to switch into your Zacian at this point, and the Entei is so low at this point, you just get to click Behemoth Blade, and that will be the knockout at this point. Even if it wasn't able to, then the Milotic and the Landorus still should be able to take care of the Entei at this point. Showing the benefit of that competitive boost as well, because it did so much damage to that Entei, even with the Assault Vest, able to survive that attack, which is pretty impressive coming out from the Entei, but it's taken so much damage here. As soon as your Entei, if your Entei is the main answer to the Zacian, and it gets put in range of a Behemoth Blade, or any of the attacks that are coming out from the Zacian, it's no longer an answer to that Pokemon, so... because it is so low at this point, because the Milotic was able to do that huge damage, it is going to be in range of this Behemoth Blade.
Yeah, and this Behemoth Blade will wrap up this game 3 for Alejo here, and that is going to make it, I believe, an 8-0 for Argentina over Canada for Canada's last hurrah here in this elimination stage of the group round. So very exciting for Argentina to move forward with that really great morale boost of completely sweeping Team Canada. With some really interesting teams to boot, I definitely loved some of the stuff that we were seeing from both the Argentina and the Canada side.
Yeah, it's definitely the momentum you want going into the top 16. And an 8-0 is always going to be a really big morale boost for your team. So really well done to Argentina there to be able to take the 8-0. It's only happened a few times throughout this tournament so far. So Argentina are going to be able to take that accolade of a clean sweep.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be taking a quick break. Jamie Boyd will be coming back for a match that I think he is very excited to be talking about here, you guys. So I will see you guys later. Jamie Boyd will see you guys right after this break, so stay tuned.